Got a little bit of extra information about spears today. Straight to the point. A primer on spears in Janthir Wilds. And look at this. It's everyone's favorite developer, Taylor Brooks, a.k.a. Trig, combat designer, here at Arena. Now, we're not going to mess around here. A lot of these questions, they're very, very basic stuff. The purpose of this post is more of a tease on the fact that, one, there is going to be a live stream going over all of these skills on June 21st. That is just basically a week before the beta event. For the spear, it tells us a little bit about the acquisition. It's going to be part of the mastery track, in fact. It's going to be just a little bit like the sky skill almost. You're going to get this very early on, not quite as abrupt, quite thankfully, as the weapon mastery training that we actually saw in Soto. Which I think is nice. That was super weird in Soto, where you just talk to an NPC and like, oh, yep, you could use your weapons. There is going to be this mastery track, and I assume it will be a bit more integrated into the story. But again, it will be like very, very early on. It'll be like in the first couple of story instances, you'll unlock this master. You'll be able to use your brand new spear, which we absolutely love to see. And we're going to have a couple of basic Q&A questions. It's like, yeah, they're all going to be two-handed. No, it's obviously different skills. It's not literally the underwater weapons on land. That's, you know, kind of scary that had to be answered, but it is what it is. This one is also great. If every person is getting a spear, does that mean they'll all feel the same? I would be so inclined just to put a troll answer here. I would just say, you know, actually, yes. In fact, everyone's getting the same skills, and in fact, the same skill. As our big expansion feature, everyone is getting one move. You just prod people with a spear. Maybe it's just a special action hotkey, right? I think that's what people were joking about. Oh yeah, the new combat feature for Soto and all future Guild Wars 2 expansions, instead of elite specs, we're getting a special action hotkey. Like, yeah, nice. But there's a cool little bit of flavor here, actually, that it's going to be ranged for some professions. Some are going to be prodding people with it in melee, and others are actually, it's going to be more of a magical weapon, almost like a stave. I think that's actually pretty cool. I think that's really nice to actually have 3 different styles of combat that will be in the expansion, so everyone will kind of find their flavor. And obviously, I think that will allow them to lean into some professions, you know, like, for example, you know, I could certainly imagine stuff like necromancers using it, like, in a magical way, or mesmers, right? And elementalists, obviously, right? If they're not getting a range spear, then goodness me, there's going to be fireworks, let me tell you that. And so the way you can unlock it, very simple. You do the master in the Code of Mastery line. You can just buy it in World vs. World, or you get it for free in PvP if you own Janthir Wilds. So you do need the expansion for this. There was actually some slight confusion with this going on, actually, because I think there was a bug that was giving everyone weapon mastery, I think, in PvP, at least for some reason, but I think that actually eventually got fixed. So there's some funny stuff going on there, but, yeah, you're going to need the expansion, and a bit of an interesting image here as well, actually, and I guess we can talk about it now. You know, a little bit of speculation in between this Q&A segment here as well, but I think what we have here, I think this is pretty clearly Necromancer here on the right. So it looks like Necromancer is going to be a melee-oriented spear, potentially. This one, I think, it's a little bit hard to tell, but I feel like it could be Guardian. We have this light field here, which kind of suggests this is a symbol. There's also resistance, but only the players in the symbol have it. So that kind of suggests Guardian. It's kind of interesting to me that Guardian might be melee. I honestly see them going in a slightly hybrid direction with Guardian, so like a hybrid weapon with a bit of support and a bit of melee damage in there. Maybe even having some range components as well. The reason I say that is because Guardian's weapons are actually really, really well fleshed out, right? Like overall, I think. With that kind of stuff, but no. Yeah, this could be Rev as well. People are saying, oh yeah, the chat's saying, oh look, it's got a red ribbon on it, so maybe it's Rev. I don't know, look, it's a heavy armor class, there's a field, it could be Rev. That would be a very funny bait, like, oh look, it looks like a Guardian symbol, but actually it's Rev the entire time. It could be. The symbol's also kind of yellow, it's not exactly, you know, it's not exactly like a Guardian symbol. No, I take it all back, right? Okay, I give up, it's impossible. This is too hard. This is why I leave the speculation to wooden potatoes, all right? I don't do this stuff, it's too challenging. And maybe like a ranger here as well, something like throwing a spear. Like, who knows? Very nondescript style of character, no special abilities or anything. Blah, 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 whatever. Looks pretty cool, though. And, yes, as we already knew, it's going to be the same item, but they are going to be different slots, so you're going to have a... You know, you don't just get spear in addition to your current weapons. You're going to have to actually slot one in, obviously. Yep. All the skins are enabled. Legendary spear in the first major release there as well. We know there's a legendary backpack and a legendary spear. Now we know the spear is coming out on the first major release, alongside the raid. Could be actually pretty cool, actually, considering that the raid is also going to be open world, too. It would be really cool if the spear was related to the raid. That would be really exciting, I think, so that players are going to kind of have it tied tied to that specific part of the content. I'm kind of hoping for a collection and a bit of a quest to get this thing. I think that's really fun. I definitely prefer those things, especially the Gen 2 legendaries. I think are really exciting to get, actually, and go for a lot of fun there. So that's pretty cool. I actually saw a really funny misreading of this one. So, engineers and Ellies can use spears on land. Will they gain them to be able to use them underwater too? No. And you know what's funny? Someone misread this and came to my chat, and they were crestfallen that they thought, wait, Ellies and Engie aren't getting spear in the new expansion and everyone else is. They actually read this and thought that Ellie and Engie are just not getting a weapon in the new expansion. That would be very funny. I would love to see Ellie mains react to that. However, it is probably for the best that Ellies are indeed getting the spear. And yeah, you need the expansion. Boom. And yes, there is a beta test on the 27th. You better play it. It's only 3 days. Man, you've got to get in quick on these things. I kind of wish it lasted longer, like a full week, instead of just the 3 days. But I guess it is what it is. And of course, here we go. We've got a live stream. Your favorite developer, Trig, alongside Cal Cohen and Roy Marks. Let's see how, you know, maybe he can defeat the Guardian NPC with the brand new spears, or maybe the Guardian NPC will have the brand new spears and will be a true threat, I guess. But anyway, tune in. June 21st. Obviously, I'll be watching that. You can expect some coverage here on the channel as well. We love to see that. And here is the real meat. We had some basic Q&A there, a couple of little bits of information about how spears operate, but here's the actual good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow and in the coming weeks with more information about the new spears and their skills. So, I think this is going to be quite similar to the new weapons for Secrets of the Obscure. They're going to be doing some teaser posts every couple of days, maybe like, you know, covering, we don't know exactly how they're going to do it. They might go a bit more detail. Like last time, they did 3 professions in one go and gave a brief overview and listed a couple of skills. Because they say over the coming weeks, I feel like they might take it a little bit slower. Maybe each profession actually gets a fully dedicated post all to themselves, like one every day potentially, like over the next couple of weeks, obviously weekdays, not weekends. That would be really cool. Bit more of a deep dive than we really delve into it, like see it in action, in combat, in the stream and go over like every single little skill. That would be pretty cool, actually. I felt like I was definitely left wanting reading some of the previous previews that we saw for Soto, so that would be pretty cool. Definitely looking forward to that. And of course, there's going to be coverage, so you better subscribe now on YouTube so you can see my perfect opinions on all of the new things out there. Got a little bit of speculation. We get to analyze what's going on. And hey, well, here's the real speculation part. We've got some really interesting little teasers on what is to come, actually, with these. And I've got some ideas about some of these. Maybe you lot. I've got some ideas about more of them. But some of them, I've got no clue. I think they're so vague. It could just be anything, honestly. And of course, that is the fun part. That is very much intentional by ArenaNet. They're going to actually tell us. We can sit tight for a while. But anyway, let's get into it. A spear skill reminiscent of an old fan favorite. I actually think this is in reference to a Guardian ability, actually. I think it's the Guardian Staff. I think they're kind of showing it here, actually. I think this is the same ability. I think this actually might be Guardian Staff auto attack, potentially, because you can see this looks very similar, in my opinion, to the old loot stick on the Guardian, this kind of cone, frontal cone, kind of going out there as well. So I think it might be that, maybe, that they're adding a skill that's similar to that, and you have this kind of ability to, you know, tag all the mobs and get all the loot. A new type of auto attack mechanic. This one, I would say, my best guess is that a different auto attack in melee and ranged. So when you're in melee, it's one thing. When you're in range, it's another. So you kind of have this duality to the weapon. Like, there's a couple of things that might, you know, we've seen like this in the game before, like Revenant Spear Underwater, I think, had this, where you have 2 auto attacks, although that was mostly like a power and condi thing, but they could like blend them together, and there's some different functionality there. That could be pretty interesting with that. I think someone also suggested this could be like a press and hold mechanic in some way. I think that would be weird on an auto attack, to be honest, so I think it's more likely to be it just functions differently in melee and range. So it would also be really cool roleplay too, like you're throwing a spear at range, but you start poking them when they get close. That could be pretty cool, I think. And then, here's the stuff where I think it gets really crazy. A set of spear skills featuring a new spin on an existing skill type. Well, I mean, that could be basically anything, to be honest. Like, who knows what on earth that could be? I mean, I don't know. If you got any bright ideas, you can unleash on that one. A set of spear skills with multiple ways to reset the cooldown of its key skill. This one, I think, sounds like a lot of fun. Definitely sounds like a lot of fun here, actually. I think this is the design we kind of saw on the Soto new weapons that came out, where the skills are kind of linked together. I'm actually hoping we see quite a lot of that design on all of these spears, because bear in mind, this is a two-handed weapon, so it kind of makes sense to have it's kind of more feasible to have all of the spells interact without making them overly bloated. I think this type of design is really cool and really fun, very rewarding to using your abilities appropriately, so I think this is actually really cool. Sounds really exciting, actually. A melee spear skill that rewards careful positioning. Like, this has the potential to be really, really cool, especially in competitive game modes, I think, but also incredibly troll as well, specifically in PvE. Because if it's going to be something like, oh yeah, you have to flank your target to, like, get maximum value, or if it's going to be, you know, something I brought up was, like, something like from League of Legends, a mechanic where you have to hit a target from a certain side, and then afterwards it's another side. There's, like, a character in League of Legends, Fiora, that behaves a little bit like this. Like, you have to kind of move around and, like, stab your opponent from different directions to get value out of it. I think stuff like that. I think it could be really fun interactive, particularly in PvP game modes, because you also have the counterplay of your opponent trying to prevent that from happening, right? And of course, we have seen flanking mechanics in the game, right? Like a bunch of weapons. Especially Ranger, right, operates in this way, where hitting your opponent from the back with great sort of hilt bash and stuff like the short bow abilities, you get a bonus effect, right? So I think that's the kind of thing that can go in there. Can be a little bit awkward in PvE sometimes, though, but I think there are ways to mitigate that. And hey, maybe if it's got some good mobility, then it just turns into this kind of like crazy dance DPS rotation where you have to like jiggle around the boss. Bit awkward on bosses you can't flank, but unlucky. I think in general, by the way, when they do that, I think most bosses that kind of can't be flanked literally often just have like 100% flank uptime anyway, so it's probably okay. But anyway, we'll see. Pretty interesting idea there. And a set of spear skills that features a reimagining of a mechanic seen in the original Guild Wars. Yeah, this is also very nebulous. Like, it's not totally clear what they mean by mechanic. Like, because do we mean like a type of skill? Are we talking about hexes? Are we talking about something like Paragon style stuff with, you know, because of course spears are immediately going to evoke Paragons, like as some kind of chant skill, echo skills, that sort of thing. Could that be coming back? Even something like Necromancer Orders, for example, if Necromancer is going to have a support weapon, which I think would make some sense overall if they went in that direction. That could also be going down there too. Or it could be something else. It could be very literal. This is a game mechanic. So, for example, a weapon that does more damage if you're firing from elevation. So if you're higher up than your opponent, you do more damage. Because that was a thing in Guild Wars, right? If you were firing a projectile, if you're firing a bow or something, it does more damage if you're shooting down at someone. So they could have an implementation like that, for example, kind of similar to Ranger Longbow, where, you know, you do more damage if you're further away. Something like that could be added to the game. Could be interesting. Might not necessarily have a crazy amount of application, though, obviously, as that type of situation doesn't always happen. It does sometimes, though. So, you know, that could be some pretty interesting role play. Yeah, people were talking about, like, conditions and, like, Deep Wound. And I think that one kind of blends more into this one. A spear skill that inflicts a debilitating effect with a new effect. I think my best guess for this is actually healing absorption. So in other words, you put an effect on your target that absorbs healing. So let's say you put a 2,000 heal absorb on a target. They would not be able to be healed until they've applied 2,000 healing. And I think there's a little bit of evidence, not exactly evidence, but there's some things in the game that would imply that this is a possibility. They could implement an effect like this, and it would kind of work with how the game is set up. A couple of bosses, and even instabilities and fractals, apply like a negative health effect to you that reduce your maximum hit points. Like, you know, Epoch does it, for example. You like the tiny, the small person instability, right? In fractals also does that. So I think something like that, like negative HP reduction, or healing absorb, could be added to the game, I think, in some way. I guess it would make more sense if it was HP reduction. HP reduction, I think, is a little bit scary. I think effects like that are really powerful, because the inverse of that is really powerful. Like, one mechanic that's really strong for Firebrand is in PvP, in particular, when you give yourself quickness, you gain health. It gives you, you know, it gives you vitality, right? It's actually a really strong mechanic that you know, the game has. So like the opposite of that would also be really powerful as well. Like reducing max HP is a really, really powerful effect. But certainly could be something that they could add on this spear and then potentially roll out to other weapons as well, right? Because it's a good way to kind of have a counterbalance to support builds. Like support balance in Guild Wars 2 it's always been pretty scary, I think. Like, supports can end up being really, really strong. I think having mechanics like this are like another lever to pull to actually balance that, and I think could be pretty interesting, actually, overall. And you could also do stuff like this, you know, in PvE as well, right? Like, you could just make it work differently on bosses. Maybe some bosses heal themselves. Like, Ceres, for example, applies Barrier. Maybe this would be another counter to Barrier, in addition to, you know, because you can't really do poison to counter Barrier, obviously, but you could potentially do like this healing absorb mechanic that could absorb Barrier in some way, or again, like maybe there's a boss that heals itself, and this will be like a potential answer to that mechanic. Could be pretty interesting. Yeah, very similar to negative Barrier, heal absorb, negative Barrier, negative healing. There's a whole bunch of things they could call it, but that could be an interesting thing. Or we could be completely off here, and it's like some completely random effect. And then finally, a set of spear skills that require precise aiming at range. That is really interesting, to be honest. I assume that's going to be kind of AoEs. You have to kind of throw the spears and they hit an AoE rather than tracking your target, like a lot of projectiles do a little bit, to an extent. Interesting, like very heavy, you know, targeted AoE, probably like exploding spears, that kind of stuff, and, you know, maybe not the fastest projectiles in the world. Could be pretty interesting to see how that one plays out. It'd be very funny if this was Elementalist, right? You know, like you've got the, you know, imagine that, like you've got your 1200 range, but the projectiles are really slow. And then they just like slowly glide through the air before exploding. But yeah, you can get your true spear throwing roleplay here with this. We love to see it. Again, pretty vague, I think. But, you know, I think it's okay that this is vague. It's going to spark a bit of speculation. And, of course, it's going to be revealed soon anyway, starting tomorrow. And that's going to be about it. A little bit of a mini update about spears. Certainly a lot more to come. A little bit of a tease here from Taylor. Going into the next couple of days, next couple of weeks while we wait for spears. And I'm really glad that we're getting so... I wasn't expecting this today, actually. I'm really glad that we're getting right into the news with the expansion. I think it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks. A lot of new blog posts to read, a lot of stuff to react to. My favorite, obviously. And yeah, let's get ready for Janthir Wilds, guys. I want to have all the information ASAP. I can't wait for the weapon beta. And, of course, the wonderful live stream. But anyway, let me know what you think. If you've got any good ideas for these, I really want to hear them, so definitely leave a comment, okay? Let me know what we think all of these mean. I think that is a really fun thing to talk about. And make it quick as well. You haven't got long, because some of these are going to be revealed very, very soon. Indeed. And yeah, of course, I'll be covering all of this stuff. I'll be covering it live on Twitch and on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, remember that you can tune into the stream there as well. Or, of course, hop on over to Twitch as well. We'll be going over all of the Janthir news. This is it. This is your one-stop shop to hear everything about Janthir Wilds, guys. You know, oh my goodness, we're going to read everything. We're going to read every post, every minute detail. That's what we're doing here. So be sure to follow, subscribe, like the video, leave your comments with all of your exciting speculations, and enable all of the notifications on YouTube so that you will never be free of me. Because that is my one goal, to invade your life and never allow you a moment's rest. Watch more videos. Consume media. That is your purpose. But anyway, that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed this little update. And of course, stay tuned for more over the next couple of days and weeks. Take it easy, gamers. I'm out of here.